If you're over 70, there's one common medical test you might want to think twice about. It's routine, it's widely recommended, but in some cases, it may do more harm than good. Hey everyone, welcome, we're so glad you're here. Before we dive in, drop a quick comment letting us know where you're watching from. It's always incredible to see how far these conversations reach. And if you find this topic helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep bringing you content that truly matters. Now, let's get into something that could actually make a huge difference in your health, or the health of someone you love. There's a test called a bone density scan, also known as a DEXA scan. If you're over 65 or 70, especially as a woman, you've probably had one or been told you should. It's designed to check the strength of your bones and whether you're at risk for osteoporosis. On the surface, it sounds like a smart move. Who wouldn't want to stay ahead of brittle bones or dangerous fractures, right? But here's the surprising truth. For many older adults, especially those without symptoms or a history of fractures, repeated bone density scans can actually be unnecessary and even lead to more problems than they solve. That's because some degree of bone loss is completely normal with age. A scan might show a score that's lower than average, but that doesn't automatically mean you're in danger. Unfortunately, that one number can trigger a domino effect: anxiety, more tests, and prescriptions for strong medications like Fosamax or Boniva, even when there's little evidence that they'll help in your specific case. And those medications aren't without side effects. Some people experience stomach irritation, joint pain, or worse, like rare jawbone problems or atypical fractures. Plus, long-term use of these drugs has raised questions in the medical community about their true benefit in people who aren't at high risk to begin with. One major study found that for seniors without prior fractures, taking osteoporosis drugs after a low scan result didn't significantly reduce fracture risk. That's a big deal. It means some people are going through years of medication, stress, and side effects without getting the protection they think they are. Now, this isn't to say bone scans are useless. They're valuable tools, especially for people who are truly at risk, those with a history of falls, fractures, certain chronic conditions, or those on long-term steroids. But if you're generally healthy, active, and haven't experienced any bone issues, it's perfectly okay to ask your doctor, do I really need this right now? In fact, asking questions is one of the most powerful things you can do for your health. Instead of rushing into treatment based on a scan, more and more health experts are encouraging people to focus on things that actually protect your bones, like movement, balance training, getting enough vitamin D and calcium through real food, and preventing falls at home. Your health is about more than just lab results or scan numbers. It's about how strong you feel, how well you move, and how confidently you can live your daily life. Don't let a test result define what's next for you, especially when it might not even tell the full story. Coming up next, we're taking a closer look at another overused test. This one has to do with memory and brain scans, and what it really means when your doctor says just to be safe. Now, let's talk about something that strikes fear in almost everyone over 60. Memory loss. It starts subtly. Maybe you forget where you left your glasses, or you walk into a room and can't remember why. Someone jokes, "Uh-oh, early Alzheimer's," and suddenly, that tiny moment snowballs into full-blown anxiety. That's when many people are sent for a PET scan or an MRI just to check. And while brain imaging can be helpful in certain situations, it's not always the right first step. In fact, for mild memory complaints, which are often a normal part of aging, these expensive tests may create more worry than answers. Here's what they don't always tell you. Brain scans can detect age-related changes that look alarming, but are actually common and harmless. A little shrinkage in some brain areas. That's completely normal as we get older. White spots or age-related changes. Also normal, but when patients see those words in a report without context, it can lead to panic, more testing, and sometimes even misdiagnosis. One neurologist put it this way: a scan doesn't show how you function, it shows structure. And structure doesn't always tell us what your memory is doing. Even more concerning, some people are prematurely labeled with mild cognitive impairment based on a single test, even when their day-to-day life isn't affected. And once that label is in your medical record, it can impact everything, from insurance rates to how seriously your concerns are taken in the future. So, what should you do if memory lapses are becoming a concern? Start with a conversation, not a scan. Talk to a doctor who listens, who asks about your lifestyle, medications, stress, sleep, and diet. Many memory issues are actually tied to things like dehydration, vitamin B12 deficiency, poor sleep, or even anxiety and depression. All of those are treatable, and none of them require a $3,000 imaging scan. Also, get curious about your habits. Are you challenging your brain daily? Are you socially engaged? Are you moving your body? Studies show that regular exercise, learning new skills, and meaningful connection do far more to protect your memory than any scan ever could. The goal isn't to ignore symptoms, it's to respond wisely, without jumping straight to fear or unnecessary procedures. Remember, aging is not a disease, and forgetfulness doesn't always equal decline. In just a moment, we're going to unpack a third medical test that's wildly overused, especially in men, and why skipping it might actually be the smarter choice. It's one of the most controversial in modern medicine, and you've probably heard about it before. Let's shift gears and talk about one test that has stirred up decades of debate in the medical world, the PSA test. If you're a man over 50, chances are someone has suggested you get your PSA levels checked to screen for prostate cancer. Sounds responsible, right? Catch it early, deal with it early. What could go wrong? But here's the reality many don't hear. The PSA test, short for prostate-specific antigen, doesn't actually diagnose cancer. It measures a protein in your blood, and while high levels can indicate cancer, they can also spike from completely benign issues like an enlarged prostate, a recent bike ride, or even intimacy the night before the test. That means a high PSA result can send thousands of men down a rabbit hole of worry, biopsies, and treatments for cancers that may have never harmed them. In fact, some prostate cancers grow so slowly that they would never become life-threatening in an older man's lifetime, but the fear that comes with the word cancer often pushes people toward aggressive treatments, surgeries, radiation, hormone therapy, all of which carry serious side effects like incontinence, erectile dysfunction, and emotional stress. Let that sink in. A single blood test, taken without context, has led countless men to undergo life-altering treatments they may have never needed. It's not just about physical outcomes, it's about the mental toll, the sleepless nights, the regret of what if I had waited. That's why many leading health experts now recommend a more cautious approach. The American Urological Association suggests men discuss the risks and benefits of PSA testing with their doctor, rather than jumping into routine screening. This shared decision-making model allows each man to consider his family history, personal risk factors, and quality of life before taking the test, and especially before acting on it. Of course, there are cases where PSA testing has saved lives, and in men with a strong family history of prostate cancer, it can be an important tool. But for the average man, the test often reveals more gray area than certainty, and that's where informed choice matters most. The bottom line: not every abnormal result is a red flag for disaster. Not every test equals safety, and not every cancer is a ticking time bomb. Sometimes, the wisest choice is to wait, monitor, and stay informed, not to react out of fear. Up next, we're diving into a test that's often marketed as a must for heart health, especially if you're over 60. But what if I told you this common screening is more about selling fear than preventing heart attacks? Stick around, you might be surprised. Let's talk about calcium scans, the heart test that's suddenly on every health blog and over 50 checklist, marketed as a revolutionary way to detect heart disease early. This scan sounds like a no-brainer. A quick CT scan that shows how much calcium has built up in your coronary arteries. The more calcium, the more plaque, the higher the risk. Simple, right? Not exactly. The problem isn't the scan itself, it's what comes after. A high calcium score can send people into panic mode. They start new medications, adopt extreme diets, or worse, undergo invasive procedures without fully understanding what their numbers mean. Because here's the kicker: the test doesn't tell you whether those arteries are narrowed or blocked. It doesn't even indicate whether you're going to have a heart attack. It just shows calcium. And get this, people with a 0 calcium score can still have dangerous soft plaque in their arteries. That's the type of plaque that hasn't calcified yet and can still rupture and cause a heart attack. So while a high score might freak you out unnecessarily, a low score might give you false confidence. It's like trying to predict the weather by only checking the wind speed. It's one part of a much larger picture. Now, add to that the radiation exposure. While low, it's not insignificant, especially if you're getting these scans regularly. And what about cost? In many places, these scans aren't covered by insurance and can run upwards of $500 out of pocket for a test that may not change your treatment plan. That's a lot to pay for peace of mind that might be misleading. Cardiologists themselves are divided. Some see value in the calcium scan as a conversation starter, a way to motivate patients to take lifestyle changes seriously. Others believe that focusing too much on the score leads to unnecessary anxiety, medication, and overtreatment. And here's a thought you rarely hear. For many people, simply managing blood pressure, cholesterol, diet, and exercise will do more than any scan ever could. So if you're considering this test, ask yourself, what will I do with the results? Will it change anything I'm not already doing? Or will it just add another layer of worry to a life already full of health reminders and checkups? Sometimes, the smarter move is not to do more, but to understand more. And when it comes to your heart, knowledge and lifestyle often beat panic and pills. Coming up, we'll expose one of the most overprescribed supplements in senior health, one that promises stronger bones but may be doing the exact opposite if taken the wrong way. Don't miss this next part. It could change how you see every pill in your cabinet. Now, let's talk about calcium supplements. Yes, the very thing millions of seniors have been told to take daily for strong bones. Walk into any pharmacy and you'll find entire shelves stacked with calcium pills, chews, and gummies promising to protect you from fractures, osteoporosis, and bone loss. It's marketed as essential, especially for women over 50. But here's what most ads and even some doctors won't tell you. Asterisk calcium supplements, when taken without proper balance, might be doing more harm than good. Asterisk studies now show that excess calcium from supplements, not food, but supplements, may end up in places it's not supposed to be, like your arteries, kidneys, and joints. That's right. You could be popping calcium every day to protect your bones, and inadvertently increasing your risk of heart disease or kidney stones. How does that happen? Think of your body like a traffic system. Calcium needs proper traffic lights to tell it where to go, mainly to your bones and teeth. But without the right cofactors, like vitamin K2 and magnesium, calcium can get lost on its way, depositing in your blood vessels instead. That's where problems begin. And here's the twist. Countries with the highest rates of calcium supplement use don't necessarily have the lowest rates of fractures. In fact, the World Health Organization notes that some populations with lower calcium intake from food, like certain parts of Asia, have fewer hip fractures than Western countries drowning in calcium pills. So what gives? The answer lies in lifestyle, diet, and nutrient synergy. Calcium doesn't work alone. It needs partners like vitamin D to absorb it, magnesium to regulate it, and vitamin K2 to escort it to your bones instead of your arteries. Taking calcium blindly, without understanding this orchestra of nutrients, is like trying to play a symphony with one instrument, loud and out of tune. So what should you do? First, get your calcium from real food whenever possible. Leafy greens, almonds, sardines, sesame seeds, and dairy, if tolerated, are fantastic sources. Second, if you're taking a supplement, don't go over 500 to 600 milligrams per dose, and never without a discussion with your doctor about the other nutrients that balance calcium in the body. And finally, if your doctor recommends a bone density scan or osteoporosis medication, don't panic. Ask questions. Get a second opinion if needed. Understand that bone health is a lifelong journey, not a reaction to a scary scan or marketing pressure.